You've probably read the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they're everywhere now. And there's real power there. The ability to control your reactions, to separate what's in your control from what isn't, to respond with reason instead of emotion. That's valuable. But here's what I found after years of studying both Stoicism and Taoism. The Stoics are missing something fundamental. And if you're relying on Stoicism alone, you're working twice as hard as you need to. Let me explain what I mean. Stoicism teaches you to fight. Not literally, but philosophically, internally. When anxiety arises, you fight it with reason. When external circumstances challenge you, you fight back by controlling your response. When desire pulls at you, you resist. The entire system is built on this foundation. Willpower against nature, discipline against impulse, control against chaos. It works. That's not in question. A trained Stoic is formidable. But there's a problem with fighting everything. After years of this, something happens. You get tired. Not physically tired, you're used to that. Mentally exhausted, spiritually drained. You've been at war with yourself and your circumstances for so long that you forget there's another way to operate. Taoism sees this completely differently. Instead of fighting the river, it says, become the river. This is where most people stop listening because it sounds mystical. It's not. Let me show you the difference in practical terms, because this changes everything about how you approach life and work. Here's the process breakdown. Think of it as two operating systems running on the same hardware. Step 1. Understand what Stoicism actually does. Stoicism is a resistance framework. You learn to identify what's outside your control, accept it intellectually, and then marshal your will to respond correctly. Marcus Aurelius wakes up knowing he'll encounter difficult people. He prepares himself mentally. He resists the urge to react emotionally. He responds with virtue. The mechanism works through force. You're applying mental discipline like pressure against a spring. Why does this work? Because the human mind defaults toward reaction. We're wired for it. Our ancestors needed this reactivity to survive. So Stoicism offers a counterforce. It's medicine for a specific problem: uncontrolled emotion and victim mentality. But here's the thing about medicine: it's for treating illness. Once you're healthy, you don't keep taking it. Most people don't realize this, but the Stoics themselves understood something crucial. They talked about living according to nature. They weren't just talking about being virtuous. They meant aligning with how reality actually works. The problem is, in the West, we've extracted just the willpower part and lost the alignment part. Step 2. Recognize where Stoicism creates friction. Here's the cost of the Stoic approach: constant vigilance. You have to be on all the time, monitoring your thoughts, catching reactivity, applying discipline. It's like holding a tennis ball underwater. It works, but only if you never stop pushing. This creates what I call the Stoic burnout trap. You're effective, yes. You've conquered your emotions. You respond with virtue in chaos. Colleagues see you as unshakable, but internally, you're exhausted because you're constantly fighting gravity. There's tension in your shoulders you don't notice anymore. There's a tightness in how you approach work. You're always solving problems through force and will. There's a brittleness to your equanimity. You're not actually at peace. You're just really good at managing war. Most high performers live here. They've learned Stoicism well enough to be effective, but they haven't learned the second operating system. Step 3. Introduce Wu Wei, the Taoist operating system. Wu Wei translates as non-action, or more accurately, non-forcing. But it doesn't mean passivity. It means action that flows directly from the situation, without resistance, without the friction of will imposed against reality. Think of a Taoist master like this. A child approaches with anger. A Stoic prepares mentally, manages his response, and treats it as an opportunity to practice virtue. A Taoist notices the child's anger and asks, "What does this situation need?" The Taoist's response isn't chosen by will. It arises from perception. Maybe it's gentleness, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's a firm boundary. Whatever it is, it comes without effort because it's perfectly calibrated to what's actually happening. There's no gap between perception and response. There's no forced virtue. There's just appropriate action. This is the difference between forcing your way through a problem and letting the problem show you the solution. But there's a problem with pure Taoism in the modern world. Step 4. The limitation of pure Taoism in a modern context. Wu Wei works beautifully when you're operating at a high level of awareness and discipline. The ancient Taoist sages spent years in stillness, cultivating this perceptiveness. For them, the river flowed naturally because they'd trained extensively. Most of us haven't. We try to adopt Wu Wei and end up justifying laziness. We tell ourselves we're flowing with the situation when really we're just avoiding effort. We confuse non-forcing with non-doing. This is where Stoicism actually offers something Taoism needs: structure, discipline, a framework that prevents you from deceiving yourself. So here's the integration, and this is where it gets powerful. Step 5. The synthesis. Stoicism as the foundation, Taoism as the evolution. You start with Stoicism. You build the capacity to manage your mind. You learn to distinguish what's in your control. You develop discipline. You become someone who can respond with integrity under pressure. That's the foundation, but you don't stay there. Once the foundation is solid, you introduce Wu Wei. You start practicing this. When you're about to force something, pause. Ask, what if I stopped pushing? What if I listened to what this situation is actually asking for? You'll notice something extraordinary happens. Your effectiveness doesn't decrease, it increases dramatically. Why? Because you've moved from willpower against reality to alignment with reality. You've kept the discipline and integrity of Stoicism, but you've added the flow and leverage of Taoism. A Stoic sees a difficult colleague and manages their response. A Stoic Taoist sees a difficult colleague and understands what that person actually needs and meets them there. A Stoic faces a business problem and applies willpower and discipline to solve it. A Stoic Taoist faces the same problem and sees the solution that was already present. They just had to get their grasping ego out of the way. This is what the ancient masters understood. They weren't promoting passivity. They were describing a higher state of action. Action that arises from perfect alignment with circumstances, not from force imposed against them. Notice your breathing right now. Feel how it changes. When you're trying to force something, your breath gets shallow, your chest tightens. When you're aligned, your breath is full, easy, natural. That physical difference, that's the difference between Stoicism alone and Stoicism integrated with Taoism. What happens if you stay with only Stoicism? You become competent, reliable, unshakable in crisis. But you'll always be working against something: yourself, your circumstances, your desires. You'll be formidable, but you won't be free. You'll be the person everyone relies on, but you'll be running on empty. The burnout isn't obvious because you've trained yourself to ignore it, but it's there. What happens when you add Taoism? You become something different, still disciplined, still virtuous, still able to handle difficulty. But now you move through the world with less resistance. Challenges don't dissolve, you do. You flow around them. Your effectiveness increases while your effort decreases. This is the state that looks like ease but contains tremendous power. This is what the ancient sages were describing. Not laziness, not passivity, flow-powered action. Here's what I want you to do. Don't try to adopt Wu Wei tomorrow. Start with this. Next time you're about to force something, pause. Just pause. Notice the feeling of force. Notice the tension it creates. Then ask, what if I stopped pushing here? What does this situation actually need? You don't have to act on the answer immediately. Just notice what comes. That noticing is the beginning of the integration. That's the moment Stoicism and Taoism start working together instead of separately. The East and West have been separated for too long. The East has the map for flow. The West has the discipline to make it real. When you combine them, you don't just become effective, you become unstoppable. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and keep it simple. See you tomorrow.